went to go walk my dog this morning and saw someone in my apartment complex who I had never seen before. I have lived here for over a year. He immediately stood out as he had a very unique appearance with all black clothes, dark sunglasses, and he was also older. People in my apartment complex are typically in their 20s. This man was around his late 50s. The apartment complex is divided into sections, where Section 1 will be 3 rows of houses with its own open area, and then across the street is Section 2 with the same design, and then so on. I saw him across the street in Section 2, walking away from me. He then noticed me and began to walk towards me. It was unusual, as I have a dog who barks a lot, and most people will walk in the other direction because of the dog. Instead, he walked past me on the same sidewalk and headed towards one of the rows. About 5 minutes pass, and now I'm in the other section, as my dog still hasn't gone. This time the same guy shows up, coming from a corner in front of me. Again, he walks straight towards me. He starts to talk about how pretty my dog is and asks if he can pet her. I tell him no, as she bites, and then he went on his way, after once again saying how beautiful she was. Fast forward 6 hours. I take my dog out again, and as soon as I come out, I see the same guy standing across the street. Again, he sees me and heads towards me. This time, I make a point to pull my dog away, walking across the grass to get to the other sidewalk on the other side of the open space. He continues to walk on the sidewalk I was on, but appears to stop at a random house to bang on their door. I think this is weird, as I know the people that live at the house he knocked at, and I had never seen him there before. He stands there for a minute, but no one answers, and he keeps walking. Again, towards me. So I hold my dog still to let him pass, and immediately go inside. Once I get inside, I look through the peephole, where I see him standing between the 2 sections, looking around aimlessly. About 20 minutes pass, and my dad comes home, so I explain what happened. He decides to drive around the neighborhood and look for the guy. I wait for about 20 minutes, and then hear a banging on the door to my neighbor's house. At this point, I'm freaking out, and look through the peephole. It's the same guy. He then bangs on my door. I immediately call my dad, and he comes back to the house, this time getting a chance to talk to the guy. The guy explains that he was looking for 2 women that just moved in, that he wasn't sure where they lived, and he wanted to give them a housewarming gift. It just so happens that my neighbors, 2 women, just moved in, and my dad lets the guy know. My dad then asks the guy if he should tell my neighbors that he was looking for them, to which he replies, "No, I want it to be a surprise." Fast forward another hour, and now my neighbors are home. My dad asked them if they know this guy, and they explained that, when they moved in, there was a guy with a similar description watching them move their stuff in. However, they had no idea who the guy was. I'm not sure how to handle the situation, or if I'm overreacting, or if I'm not. I don't understand why you wouldn't call or text someone if you didn't know where they lived. Why walk around a complex for 6 hours banging on random doors? He also did not have any kind of gift on him. He was empty-handed when I saw him. But also I wonder, if he saw them moving in, wouldn't he already know where they lived? Plus, why not ask me where they lived, seeing me walk my dog twice in the general vicinity? I don't really understand what he was trying to do, but I'm hoping we don't meet again. This happened to me a couple of weeks ago, and I still don't know what the guy's intentions were, or why he wanted me to open the door so bad. It's 3 a.m., and I'm working on my computer in the lounge, which is right next to the front door. I had the TV on, and I was finishing off a job which was due the next day, when I heard a loud knock at the door. It's a large, double-glazed glass sliding door, with a curtain so no one can see in. At first I thought it was my upstairs neighbor. Maybe my TV was too loud and I woke them up? But then I thought that would be unlikely, as our house is pretty soundproof, and we never hear each other. So I go to the front door and open the curtain. I see a man standing there that I don't recognize. He's about 6 foot tall, has a stocky build, and scars on each corner of his mouth. Sort of like the Joker in The Dark Knight, but his were obviously old scars. I think it's called the Chelsea smile. He looks at me and asks if he can use my phone to call a taxi, as his car was just stolen in Springfield. Now this is weird for more than one reason. First being, I live in the middle of the suburbs, and there are no bars, shops, or anything else around except private houses for a good 20 minutes on foot. Second, because even if there was, everything is well closed by 3 a.m. And third, he doesn't seem angry or pissed off that his car has just been stolen. I tell him that I can't do that, and offer to call the police for him. If your car was stolen, they would be the first people you would want to call, right? Wrong. He refuses, and tells me he just wants to use my phone to call a taxi. He then looks over at my door handle, which is locked. He keeps begging me to open the door, to let him use the phone so he can call a taxi. I tell him I'm very sorry, but I cannot open the door for anyone I don't know in the middle of the night. I suggest that he ask the people upstairs. My neighbor is a big guy, so he would be able to handle him. He then backs off a little and looks around. I close the curtain and go to my room. I peek out of the window from my room to see a cop car with 2 officers standing beside it, talking to him. I take it one of my neighbors called when they saw him outside my house acting strange. I close the curtains, and a few minutes later, I look out again and see he's been taken away. I never spoke to the police, so I don't know what happened after they took him away. But later on I Google Mapped Springfield, and there is no Springfield anywhere near my house. The only one in my country is in the South Island. I live in the North Island, so you have to cross a lot of ocean to get there. The whole time this was going on, he kept looking around, and he went from nice and polite to anxious and frustrated pretty quickly. I'm an insomniac, so I go for walks at all random hours of the night. About 2 weeks ago, I was at the park that's about a 3-minute walk from my place. I walk to this park all the time, and through the bushland, with nothing eventful ever happening. This particular time, it was 2:44 a.m. I checked the time because I had just texted my partner when I had left to let her know I was leaving, when I decided to go for a nice night stroll. The park is practically on the ocean and connected to bushland. So I crossed the road from my house, and then there's a children's park set up like a pirate ship. And to the right, there's about a 5-minute walk of bushland with a footpath through it so you can get to a bridge. There's no lights in there, and the bush is so thick that no moonlight gets through. You can literally not see 50 centimeters ahead of you unless you have a torch. Anyway, as I was walking to the park, I could hear noises in the bushland. Wild turkeys live in there, so I took no real notice. The closer I got, the clearer I could hear the sounds. They weren't random rustling sounds. It was the sound of something hitting a tree at regular intervals. It sounded as if, deep in there, someone was hitting a big log against a tree. There were no sounds other than that. No birds, bats, or rustling. Just the sound of someone in there smashing a log against a tree every second, on the second. I know someone was hitting a tree because it would rustle the leaves of every other tree connected to it. It was going on for at least 5 minutes since I had been there, with no deviation of the pattern. I was curious, so like an idiot, I walked to the tip of the path, right to where the light ends and the bush starts. I walk about 30 seconds into it, and the sound keeps getting louder and louder. I texted my partner prior, so I'm kinda deep in the bush when my phone goes off, which almost seems to echo through the area. I stopped, pulled out my phone, and realized I could use that for a torch. I checked the message, then I heard something heavy drop to the ground. I think it was the log that was being used to hit the tree. 2 seconds after he drops the log, I hear running, towards me. I know he was running because the leaves, twigs, and little bushes were rustling really fast. He was getting closer. I started to get freaked out and ran back out of the bush the way I had came. As soon as I got to the top of the path, where the light starts, he stopped running, and there was dead silence. Not even the sound of a twig snapping. After a while, I shouted, "Are you okay? Do you need any help?" But there was no reply. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but must have only been 15 seconds. Then I hear the rustling again, but not as rushed as it was before, and it sounded like it was going further away. He was walking back to where he was before. After a while, there was again silence for about a minute. I was standing at the edge of the bush, listening and trying to figure out what had just happened, when I hear rustling one last time, and then the sound of him hitting the tree again and again, in the same rhythm that he was doing before. I called out again, asking if he was okay, but there was no reply, and he didn't stop hitting the tree. A little while later, I decided to walk home, and could still hear the thumping, but it was getting faint now. By the time I had crossed the road to get back to my place, I couldn't hear anything. I went back the same morning to have a look, but there were no traces of anyone being in there. Just people going for their morning walks. I went again that night, but he wasn't there. I've been back almost every night since, and it's never happened again. Sometimes I just wonder, what would have happened if I would have had a torch and could have seen him? What would he look like? Or, even worse, what would have happened if I didn't run, caught me? But, I guess thankfully, I'll never know. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you can catch all of my future content. Once again, I'd really like to thank you guys. We're getting really close to 50,000 subscribers, and I only started this 2.5 months ago. I guess it kind of feels like I came in like a wrecking ball. I figured I'd throw that in there, give you guys a couple laughs. A quick shout out to Ian for recording that. I told you I'd give you a shout out, so there you go, bro. That's all you get. Alright guys, I'll catch you guys tomorrow for another video. And until then, just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.